Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin on Rugby preview show on our YouTube channel. Please be sure to hit that like and or subscribe button if you can. Joining me this week is someone earning Harpin cap number 67. Please don't tell my youngest daughter I just said those numbers. Welcome back to Mr. Mark Jackson.
Keeping up with the youngins. All right, Jeff. Yeah, great to be back. Thanks for having me again.
It's definitely keeping up with them. They're not keeping up with us, that's for sure. Okay, listen, before we go on, Mark, we last had you on ahead of Leinster's match at Leicester Tigers. Now, we won that as well as the following three interpros. What have you made of us in that time?
Listen, the results have been good. Performance is not great, but listen, we can't complain too much. I think I made a social media post saying, listen, we're getting a bit spoilt with 7 wins on the bounce and 50 points last week, yet we were still moaning as a general, I guess, group. There are certain things to be happy about, but listen, 7 wins is not to be sniffed at.
No, absolutely. I mean, especially after the way the season began. I mean, you know, you can talk about reasons or Lions hangovers or whatever, but you know, the 3 out of 4 defeats to start the season is gonna put you on the back foot for sure. And they've responded with the results anyway. And you know, hopefully we'll be able to keep that going. So we'll see how we do finishing off the spool. So let's have a look at this feature match of the week, which is of course Leinster v La Rochelle in Pool 3, Round 3 of the 25-26 Investec Champions Cup. It is taking place at the Aviva Stadium on Saturday, January 10th, kicking off at 5:30 p.m. with TV coverage on Premier Sports 1. Leinster named their match day squad at lunchtime on Friday. If you're watching on YouTube, it should be right there in the screen. For pod listeners, it's in the program notes. Mark has picked out some points. He wants to start out with the back three.
Yeah, I think last weekend we saw a Leinster back three sort of delivering in all fronts and what was asked of them in JJ Kenny. He's had a superb season so far, a real find for Leinster, and has had a real bit of pace into the back three, along with Tommy O'Brien, who's been superb. And actually, I thought it was one of Kieran Foley's better games for Leinster since he's gone to Connacht. He's really come up trumps really for us. He put in a lot of good hits last week. He was very good against Munster as well. And I think they're up against a very good back three in the La Rochelle back three on Saturday. And it's a back three that I was hoping we would see again in Europe with the obvious choice of James Lowe usually being picked for these bigger type games. But it's great to see the pace on offer from Kenny and O'Brien.
Yeah, because I mean, what we were saying on our rep pod after the Connacht game is just how similar in style and approach Kenny is to James Lowe. I mean, he every single carry he wants to make something happen, and of course he is that little bit younger as well, and he does have that attitude about him. And of course, this is something we talk about. Leo Cullen's tenure. One of the things he did that started the results coming for Leinster back when he started was I think it was a European game. Were pretty much out of that pool. It was against Bath after Christmas, and he just put a lot of youngsters in, like some Van der Flair and Ross Maloney players, just getting there who wouldn't usually be played that young in Europe. So it is good to see someone like Kenny breaking through and able to get into the team.
Yeah, no, definitely. Allied with a couple of lads up in Ulster in the Ward brothers, you know, they're getting their chance, they're taking it. And it's fantastic to see both from a provincial and international point of view, hopefully, as well. Hopefully Andy Farrell has a little bit more I don't know what the word is. I don't want to say guts because he's never been afraid to put his neck on the line with selection. But I think these players are now coming to the fore and definitely putting their hands up for potential international selection.
Absolutely. And of course, you talk about the back three, of course, our hands were kind of tied in a way when it came to fullback anyway, because, you know, so many injuries to players who probably would have been wearing that 15 jersey, which might have freed up Frawley to play somewhere else. But luckily, we've Robbie Henshaw coming back into the center. He's able to play 12 alongside Owani. So it's a very strong carrying center pairing there to complement, of course, and Gibson Park and Prendergast as the halfbacks. Okay, so let's move into the pack now. And you want to have a look at the front row.
I think the front row are in for one of their bigger games of the season. I think they're up against a very experienced, rugged front row in La Rochelle with Uni and Tony coming back and Wardy. They're very gnarled props, you know, and with Will Skelton behind, they're going to have a serious amount of grunt and heft for two relatively young props in McCarthy and Clarkson. And no offense to our bench, but we don't really have the experience with Slimani or Furlong this weekend, or Porter, in fairness. So we're going to have a good probably 70 minutes from Paddy McCarthy and Tom Clarkson needed on Saturday. I think Dan Sheehan is going to have a need to have a leadership role again, at least a good 50, 60 minutes. Obviously, Ronan Keller, it's almost a muchness whoever starts and finishes. We've had a lot of influence from the Leinster bench in the last 3 or 4 games coming on. I think this is one game where the starting 15, especially the front row, are going to have to put in a shift.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about injuries in the backs. I mean, we're lucky in that regard in that we have players to come in and take their place. We can even afford to even leave out players like James Lowe. But in the forwards, I mean, you take out names like Porter, Slimani, and Furlong in the front row, and you're really struggling. And especially against a team like La Rochelle, like you say, have such experience in their pack. So yeah, we're going to rely a lot on this starting lineup, and I'd say you'll be looking for a long shift out of them. And of course, the back row battle is going to be interesting as well, because I mean, you just look at the La Rochelle lineup. I mean, Jegu, Bottia, and Aldred have caused a lot of problems in the past to both Leinster and Ireland.
Oh, definitely. Aldred is a top class operator, and the battle with him and Doris is worth the entrance fee alone. And again, will be worth it on Saturday. But I think Jack Conan and Van der Fleer are going to have some serious impact. Not to criticize players individually, but I didn't think Mangan and Connors were great last week on the flank. I thought when they were substituted for Deegan and Van der Fleer, I thought Leinster pulled away, especially at the breakdown. I thought that helped us out a lot. I think both the front row and the back row are going to have to put in serious shifts this weekend.
Yeah, speaking about that game against Connacht, we went for a 6-2 split for that game. The only rationale I could think for that was that they might consider they were sort of logistically getting ready for a similar game against a forwards heavy team like La Rochelle, but they've gone 5-3. What do you read into that?
I don't know. It might be horses for courses, as you say last week, preparation, but maybe it's just an injury focus. With the team that's available, you just pick what you have really for Leo this week. I think at sometimes Leinster have been spoiled with the amount of players that have been available for selection, and sometimes you don't get it right all the time. Don't get me wrong. I think a 5-3 split. I think we have to stick in this game for about 40, 50 minutes. They're not a young team, La Rochelle. They've had some ups and downs over the season. They had a great result last week against Toulon, but Toulon were really very, very weakened. And listen, this is a team where I think normally we would rely on our bench and our squad, but I think the team itself has got to put in a shift, and hopefully all the bench guys that come on, especially sort of Harry Byrne, have an influence so do get some minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we were talking about the back row battle, but Max Deegan certainly well able to come on and put on a few minutes. And of course, going 5-3 allows us to play Harry Byrne on the bench as well. So it'd be handy to have him. If we'd gone 6-2, we'd probably need a more versatile 23, and he might miss out. So there's that as well. Bit of backup for Sam there. So listen, it's an interesting lineup, but like you say, it's heavily reliant on the starting 15. So we'll see how they get on. But now it's time to just have a quick look at La Rochelle. Now, after destroying Toulon last weekend in the top 14, Raj's team now sits 7th on the table with 7 wins and 7 defeats. They split their opening 2 Champions Cup matches, defeating Leicester at home before sending a weakened team to Cape Town, where they fell to the Stormers. But you wouldn't call this a weakened team.
You wouldn't call this a weakened team at all. As I said before, the word I would use is gnarled. A gnarly bunch of guys that are used to a fight and are no mean exponents of it. They're a very, very, I don't want to be really boring here and say, but they're a tough team. They really are, especially up front. Legarek is a superb signing at 9. I think he's a great 9 in any number of players that could play 9 for France. He's probably ranked 3rd at the moment in any other team. He'd probably be their first choice 9. Internationally, especially, I think he's a great player. I think him and West will form a really good halfback partnership. Saltini missing in the midfield is a big one for me, who I normally think he's a very underrated player and causes Leinster no end of problems usually when they play against them. So it'll be interesting to see how they go with not a brilliant midfield for them.
Interesting, yeah. But the one thing we know about this is that we often say like French teams playing away from home in Europe, and especially in pool matches, they may not take them as seriously. But La Rochelle, particularly against us, are definitely one of those teams that are that are going to come and they're going to go for it. So it's an interesting lineup as well. Some names on the bench there, familiar names as well: Kane Douglas, Antoine Hostoy as well. So we'll see how
Yeah,
they get on.
they haven't had the greatest year injury wise. They've had a lot of players missing, but they've got a few of their older guys coming back now. So again, they've put out a pretty strong 23 against us.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we're going to have a quick look at the officials. It's an all-English lineup with Matthew Carley holding the whistle. The weather in Dublin 4 on Saturday evening, it looks like it's going to behave according to the forecast now. Anyway, 2% rain, no wind, 2 degrees. It was in minus against Connacht last weekend, so a bit of improvement there. Now it's time to take a quick look at all the other matches this weekend. What game in the Champions Cup stands out for you?
I think the last 2 times I've said, let's have a look at the Munster games. I think Munster struggled against Toulon, but the game of the weekend is probably Bordeaux against Saints on Sunday. That should be a cracking game to finish off the weekend. There's been a lot of said in the press this week about the hatred of a certain player from the Saints with Bordeaux. I think hatred is a very, very, very strong word to use for anybody. I think he winds people up to a certain degree. They took it to the nth degree in Cardiff last year, and I think it's a cracking game to finish the weekend on. To be honest with you,
yeah, absolutely. It's a big tie repeat of last year's final, and lots of little rivalries going on in there. And elsewhere.
To be fair to Saints, the Saints are playing some cracking rugby at the moment, both in Europe and in the Premiership. I know I watch a bit of Premiership rugby, but they're not. It's not the strongest league in the world, but listen, their game against Bath last week recently was very good. Listen, they're a quality side and a team that should be kept an eye on.
Absolutely, they do seem to be going for it for sure. And of course, the other provinces, like you say, Munster are away to Toulon. I mean, Toulon suffered a heavy loss there at the weekend, but I think there'll be a different at home to Munster in the Champions Cup might be a different prospect for them. And of course, we got the Irish provinces in the Challenge Cup, both playing on Sunday. Ulster and Amsterdam against the Cheetahs, and Connacht away to Montpellier. Okay, so going back to our feature match, it's head on the block time, Mark. How do you see it going in the Aviva on Saturday?
I'll take a 1-point win, no problem. But I think Leinster should, considering they've ground out some results recently, and I think that might be the case again. I think I see us by 7 to 10 points. To be honest with you.
Well, that'd be great. I'd definitely take that. Obviously, we did a video earlier in the week, myself and Connor, about the standings in the pool, how we're up against the Stormers, yet we don't play them. It seems to be between us for the top two. Even if we win all our matches, we were depending heavily on how they do on their side. So 5 points would be great. But like you say, La Rochelle would send a gnarly with a capital G team with to try to grind us down. So I think we've gotten some come from behind wins in the past week. I don't know if we can afford to do that this time, especially with the bench. I say we'd have to start pretty early. You've got Sam, you've got those wingers, the dynamic back three and everything. You want to get them moving and get that scoreboard moving early in the game. If they can do that, they should come out on top. But if they struggle in going into the second half, it could be a different story.
Yeah, it's a team in La Rochelle that they will always, well, not I say always, but more than likely will take 3 points whenever they're on offer. So as you said, it's very important to keep the scoreboard ticking over this weekend.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about discipline as well, and so we certainly don't want to be handing them those 3 points too often either. Okay, listen, we're going to leave it there, man. Many thanks for joining us, sir. Hope to have you back on soon.
Cheers, mate. Been a pleasure as always.
And thanks to you all for checking out our latest preview show. Be sure to enjoy the match wherever you are, and also leave your thoughts on our Facebook page after the full-time whistle, and look out for that Rap Pod recording on Sunday evening. Hopefully you'll help us out by liking, sharing, and subscribing. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.